own speed. But I do want to mention a couple comments from Mike Oresco, because Ross Dellinger's put out a piece, and he actually mentions potential realignment candidates for the American Athletic Conference. So you thought that this is all just about the Big 12. Well, no, there's obviously going to be a domino effect. Obviously, the SEC started the dominoes. The Big 12 is the next to hit the next few over, and so now the AAC is obviously going to have to do something. But Mike Oresco said in regards to the teams leaving, the DNA in this league isn't going to change. Our remaining schools have competed extremely well with the schools leaving. The schools leaving have had success, but they're not dynasties. We'll add schools and replenish and reconstitute. And that was a quote I had read a little bit earlier. But he also went on to say, they said we couldn't officially be a Power 6 at the time, but now what's happening? Those teams are supporting the Big 12. It's interesting irony. This demonstrates our success without question. So then he went on to be asked about who would be potential new members, and he did not mention anybody by name, but Dellinger threw out some candidates. He said that the top option is likely to start with UAB, which makes a lot of sense, that Birmingham market. And he also went on to mention teams like Air Force, Army, Colorado State, Boise State, North Texas, Charlotte, Coastal Carolina, and Arkansas State. So those were some of the teams that he mentioned as possibly being American teams in the future.
So now the Sun Belt and the
Sun Belt screwed.
The WAC.
How about Coastal Carolina? Did they mention?
That was the last. It's the next to last one that I mentioned.
What I'm surprised they haven't said is Liberty.
Yeah, no, that's
maybe
a
just because they're so new to the FBS, but still.
They got a boatload of money. They got, I know a lot of it online students, but still a very large student population. And yeah, they're kind of getting away from what was like sort of the shadowy figure above them that was kind of made them a little weird to root for too much. What was that, Falwell? Yeah.
And the other Falwell.
Yeah, Jerry Jr.'s who I'm talking about, most recently. So they've moved on, or moving away from that, which I think has been to their benefit. But one thing that Ross mentioned in his article, he said the last 4 teams to leave the AAC were the top 4 group of 5 public schools in athletic department revenue, according to figures from USA Today. So, I mean, they're bringing in some pretty good teams as far as what was left available. UConn had topped that list previously. There were 51 Power 5 programs with $80.9 million in revenue in 2018-19. So after UConn, it was Houston, UCF, Cincinnati. And so that tells you why they were that money part of it, that they were the next in line, so to speak. And UConn's already been there, done that, so you weren't going to invite them back into the party because their situation, even right now, since they've left the American, is awful with what's going on at their football programs in terms of lack of success. Coach leaving now in the middle of the season after 2 games. So, yeah, I mean, they went out and got the best candidates, basically, and we'll see what the American does, but that's an interesting list of candidates for them as well.
Juan M. on the chat, UH alum here. I can't wait for us to start playing in the Big 12. Exciting times for years. I was on campus during the Case Keenum years as well.
I think it's going to be, I was not, very obviously, I was not on board with Houston from the very get-go as one of the top 2 teams to bring in. But when you start talking 4, okay, now I'm more open to that, and it makes a lot more sense. Had it been 2 and they just said, hey, we're adding Houston and BYU, I would not be feeling nearly as good today. But the fact that it's 4 and Houston's included in that, I'm down with that. And, yeah, I think that you're already going to start getting a little bit of excitement, like Baylor-Houston. And it matters. It's not just a non-conference game that Baylor needs to win for recruiting purposes or just to, have the Big 12 swagger, or that Houston wants to, prove that they belong. Now it's just straight-up conference game, and that'll be cool. And I think Houston versus Tech, Houston versus Baylor, Houston versus TCU, that will be a good thing in the long run.
All right. And I do think, while it does kind of hurt the overall recruiting of it helps Houston's recruiting get to a level, but maybe it stops at a level that they could get to if again, when you get 4, there's only so many Power 5 players to go around.
Yeah.
But maybe it does put a little bit of a damper on Texas and Texas A&M, just a little bit.
Just to lose a couple players here and there.
Just a little bit to maybe you can keep them in the Big 12 instead of going to the SEC. It would not be anything major, obviously. But look, if you can get a couple bee stings, they can help you sometimes.
You can get Ed Oliver.
Yeah.
And they got him, and he turned down UT, A&M, Oklahoma, Baylor, everybody to go to Houston, even though they were not in a power conference. Now they are. So now get a couple Ed Olivers, you hope so at least. And maybe Houston players won't be as hesitant to take that plunge, knowing now that, hey, there's an opportunity to still play a lot of teams. Now, look, losing Texas and Oklahoma, that's going to be a sting, not just in the revenue and stuff we're talking about, but for recruits. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Like, they want to be able to go to Baylor or TCU and play Oklahoma and Texas every year. And now all of a sudden that's going to be off the table in the next year to 4 years. So I do think that will hurt, but having Houston there to potentially grab the Ed Oliver every once in a while and be in a better position to do that maybe more often will be good for the Big 12.
All right, what do you want to keep going, Paul, or we take a break and then come back? We got
about 4 more minutes.
I didn't have a chance. Please help me if I'm wrong here. Florida Atlantic quarterback N'Kosi Perry has signed what is believed to be the first